Hi, and welcome back to Software Sales University. The topic we're going to be talking about today is continuing along the lines of the mid-market and enterprise sales process. We have just discussed the discovery step, and now we're getting into the product call step. So ultimately with the product call, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the why that we gathered from the discovery call and translating that into slides that are ultimately going to satisfy that buying criteria. So what we're doing is we're demonstrating satisfaction of buying criteria with a co-authored solution, and we're relating everything back to what they're doing now and the why of what they're doing from the discovery step. So the solution needs to be designed consistent with the new customer acquisition process and the why of other vendors they are currently using. And at the end of the product call, we begin to co-author the buying paradigm. So ultimately, in a step-by-step of the product call, number one, confirm buying criteria from the discovery call and a recap or what we know slide. Number two, demonstrate a solution consistent with the buying criteria. So, hey, the reason I'm showing you this slide is because you told me X was important to you. Next, we're going to do a check-in question that they agree that this satisfies the buying criteria. And then we're ultimately going to repeat the process for each buying criteria until we satisfy, and then get to ultimately co-authoring the buying paradigm, which is the next step. So the next step being co-authoring the buying paradigm. This can be done at the end of the product call or on another call after that, where we then go about co-authoring the buying paradigm or buying methodology, which is based upon their corporate buying process and how they typically make their buys in terms of how they structure their pilots. So once we get that, we can then translate that buying paradigm into a co-authored proposal, depending on the nature of their need and goal. And ultimately, at the end of that, they may need to co-author an ROI model if they need to build a business case within their organization to get a pilot accepted or approved. So we may need to schedule some time to walk through an ROI model to evaluate a pilot in the context of a pro forma return. And when we do that, that ROI model becomes the proposal and pilot structure when we agree upon it. From there, the next call that we're going to have is a proposal call. So we lay out the proposal according to the co-authored buying paradigm and get buy-in on the pilot structure. Ultimately, we're going to recap the information from the product call to set the context for the pilot, namely the buying paradigm. From there, we're going to discuss KPIs and attribution methodology that we're going to be using to prove out the pilot and the return on ad spend. And then ultimately, we're going to present the proposal based upon guidepost or a co-authored return on ad spend model and the pilot structure. From there, we're going to discuss the purchase order and the payment method process, loop in anyone we need to do on that, and then get verbal agreement on the pilot structure. And then ultimately, the next step is going to be closing and onboarding, where we work with the buying team and the approval team within their organization to get the pilot approved, the purchase order signed, and gather the payment method. So that's those are the steps.